This is a test. This is a test. Early in my ministry, I had a colleague who worked in the mail room of our building. We exchanged pleasantries in the mornings when I passed a window on the way to my office on the 3rd floor. When we first met, she was always open and kind. I looked forward to meet her and greet her each morning. Gradually, over the years, she began to change. The light faded in her. She became distant and small. One day, I noticed that the light I had noticed before was back in her, and I asked her what happened. I legally changed my name, she reported with a smile. Oh, I responded. Yes, she said. My first name is now Martha, and my last name is now Caroline. That's interesting, I remarked. Yes, she said. I was abused by my father from the cradle and my husband from the age of 18. I am done with wearing men's names. Why did you choose Caroline for your last name? I asked. That was my grandmother's name. She taught me all I have ever known about love. She is who I want to be. So every time I write or say my new name, I remember all that was good about her and try to live up to it. Legally, changing our names may seem extreme to some of us. Still, when Martha realized and God knew is that names matter. Names have power to shape reality and in some senses to control it as well. I learned this early. When I was a child, I was seriously ill and often in and out of hospitals. Once, when I was about 5, I had an episode that was life-threatening. My parents often told me of the day the doctors came out of the old green hospital room, refused to make eye contact, and just shook their heads as my parents stood before him. Standing by the blooming white azaleas, they cried and prayed that God would spare their little girl. I did survive, obviously. Shortly after that, my mother took me to town to shop for a new dress. I grew up in a small southern town. That was a big deal. Women dressed up. I remember I had a puffy skirt, socks with rick-rack trim around the cuffs, and a black pair of shoes with yellow daisies on the toes. As Mama and I walked down the street, a friend of hers spotted us, ran across the street, and crouched down eye level with me. She pinched my cheeks and said with passionate earnestness, "Jeannie, you are just a little miracle."
that again. So I'm just going to move this up just a little bit, jog.
This is where's the mic now? This is the one that she uses.
Yeah, she's using handheld.
Yeah. Batteries. That's what I must write down.
There you go. Yes. Check, check, check. Test, test, test. That'll do it.
Maybe that one.
Test, test, test. It's the handheld, no effects. Just everything straight across the board. Limit. On. Mic. Line. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Check, 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 check. Test, test, test. Test, test, test.
It seems like what's the treble or what is that?
Check, check, check. Test. Let's turn it up. Yeah, for you, probably could take the high down and the low down. We'll turn up the volume. How about now? Check, check, check. All right. Let's turn this off. So let me. So I turned everything up just a smidge, but I turned your treble down.
Okay.
So it shouldn't pick up the high.
Remember, or please, if you've got a minute, you must just help me carry that bench to the back. I've moved it to give us a little bit of space for the 6 feet thing.
Right.
Okay, tell me when I can start. Okay. There is a tendency, and even the most faithful people, to use God's name to bolster our arguments, opinions, and even our unexamined prejudices. For many years, people claimed God's name in order to cling to slavery, bigotry, homophobia, and more. An understanding that God's name is holy draws us into a relationship in which we learn not to attach God's name to things that God abhors.